Hello and welcome everyone to round 4 of PSGL F3 season 28. We are here in Belgium at the circuit Spa-Francorchamps with a lot of historic corners about this very historical track, and I am very happy to be here once again after I did my first race of the season last week in Austria. My name is Felix and I am once again joined by Jake. Hello and welcome.
Hello, should be another great race here in F3. We had a lot of drama last week in Austria, so hoping for more of the same for this week as well. And hopefully the guy who crosses the line in first this week gets to keep the win, because that was not the case last week.
Yeah, we've got a lot to catch up with before we head into the race itself. But I've got the issue that I haven't got any engine sounds. That fixes for the race, doesn't it?
I believe so, yeah. Should be alright.
Let me just quickly check if I have not accidentally disabled the engine sounds. No, everything's set alright. Then I guess it's just a thing
just a
of,
game.
Yeah, the game just being... it's back now. I paused and unpaused and I've got the engine sounds. Brilliant. Hearing that Racing Point engine revving after, when he comes out of Pujon. So, Jake, what do we want to start with in this quali session? I think a good point to start is last week's round, because some things have changed in the results. If you want to tell us something about that.
Yeah, so basically there was quite a few penalties after last week's race. To put it into context, Venom, Carter, Simon, Slimbo and the race winner Gerassi all collected 5 seconds worth of penalties, and Cornet collected 15 seconds worth of penalties. So with all that taken to mind, I'll basically say the new top 5 from last week's race was Kryptonite winning, Luke in his favourite position second, Daniel in third, Gerassi fourth and Slimbo fifth. I think Cornet was near the front as well, and he dropped to 9th.
Yeah, well, Kryptonite heading into this weekend then with a lot of momentum after getting the post-race win then. I mean, it's definitely not the way you'd want to win a race, but, you know, you take anything. You take an extra 4 points and your first win of the season to your name. And, you know, that really helps you carrying into the next couple of rounds, because obviously it's easier to perform if you've had a great round in the previous week, a great weekend, instead of, you know, finishing last or having a crash or whatever. But with that momentum now, Kryptonite, I think it's his home race today as well, isn't it?
Yes, it is. It is his home race. A good race to win next. He comes into his home track full of confidence, but as we know, sometimes your home race can provide that bit of extra pressure.
Yeah, and that extra bit of heartbreak even more. I think all the Germans know what I'm talking about, including me, sadly. But we've got the first invalidation from Menno in the Racing Point, who would have been the first driver to set his lap. But now it's going to be Cohen, who I believe, if I remember correctly, he did quite well last week. And I'm trying to figure out, my memory is not that great, to be honest, but who was it who was very unlucky last week? Who just...
it was Daniel.
Yeah, Daniel. Yeah, that was it. So Daniel, but he was your driver of the day.
Yeah, and thanks to the post-race penalties, he managed to still get a podium in the end. So good salvage there. That's a nice lap from Cohen to start off with a 140.8. And speaking of Daniel, he's about to go second on a 41.2, which he'll be hoping for a bit more time than that. I suspect pole position, probably looking, I would say, in the mid 1 minute 40s would be my guess of a pole lap here.
Gotta say, it's a good lap to start your qualifying session with. I mean, a high 140 is ultimately what you want to do as a banker here in F3, I reckon, because we've got a lot of quick guys in this division, as we've already seen in the first 3 rounds of the season, and I think today is going to be no different. And we can see Luke already pretty close to his teammate, and once again in his favourite position, it's second.
Yeah, he'll be really happy when he gets that win, because it'll feel really good after all the second places. But you can't teach consistency, and he's certainly got that. Loney goes across the line, goes fourth. I was expecting him to go a bit higher there. Slimbo has left the session, which isn't too ideal. And a good thing to report ahead of this week's race is there's no penalties or qualifying bans to take into consideration. So, the only things we've got to consider are the penalties they get in the race itself.
Yeah, do you reckon it's going to be a big factor tonight, having penalties and going off the track? Because Belgium usually is known for its interesting interpretations of track limits in various racing series all around the world in real life. I can remember, I think it was the WEC pole position lap that I've seen a year ago or something. And that the lines he took didn't really have much to do with Spa anymore, because he was more off the track than on the track.
Yeah, and that's why I think that's why so many people are big fans of tracks with actual proper runoff areas, because if there's grass or gravel there, they haven't got the opportunity to take those lines. So it's a lot simpler around those sort of tracks, really. You don't want to go off the track, so to speak. But I'm following Girassi around. He'll be would have been quite a bit of heartbreak for him last week, having that race win, but then taken away because of a penalty in the pit lane. He goes up to 4th. And, of course, last week it was really tough conditions for the drivers. So, the rule is there. It's the same for everybody. You can't cross the line. But, we have also got to acknowledge it was difficult conditions for the drivers. And, it was easy in a way to go over that pit line. Whereas in the dry, it's a lot more easy to avoid it.
Yeah, and the pit entry line is far from ideal. I think it's a lot easier around here. I mean, it's pretty clear. But gotta say, that pit lane entry caused a lot of chaos back in 2012, I think it was, where Pastor Maldonado, just did what Pastor Maldonado did back in the day, and basically crashed 2 people out of the race by entering the pit lane while he was on the outside on the first right hand of the bus stop chicane. So if you're side by side going into the bus stop, you'd rather back out if you really want to pit. Otherwise, you could cause a bit of trouble. But I think the drivers are smart enough not to go side by side before they want to enter the pit lane.
No, definitely not. And this was one of those tracks where there's quite a few decent overtaking spots anyway, so you don't need to rely on that bus stop chicane, even though it is the biggest braking point on the track. You've still got plenty of other spots you can overtake as well, so there's no necessity to get an overtake done at that particular point. We've already got drivers on their second hot laps. Menno, who was the first one out there, is on his lap, but if he's not careful here, he could get held up by Boyrod, who just about gets out his way, but Menno then invalidates on the exit of the corner, so it was to no avail anyway.
That could have been a bit of a dirty air that he got there from the Mercedes driver, and I'm actually a bit surprised that we've got the issue of traffic around this track, because obviously it's the longest track on the calendar. If I'm not mistaken, it's 0.007 kilometers long. I had another 0 before the 7, I'm not quite sure. But usually you wouldn't have to worry about traffic all too much, just because the track is so long.
No, it's quite rare that you have the issue of traffic here. It's certainly not like Austria last week, where it's the shortest track that we go to, and it's a lot more difficult to avoid cars. But yeah, around here it's really weird to actually get traffic, because like you say, it's so spread out usually, but it can happen sometimes. You just end up with a load of cars in a certain area of a track, even around a track as long as this. I didn't notice it on my screen, but I'm guessing that Ryan has crashed out of qualifying already.
Yeah, actually, I actually forgot to tell you. I think you were discussing previous week's result at that point. But I did see a yellow flag as well. I think it was out of Pujon. And then he retired, so I reckon he maybe lost the rear end or something. And then slammed into the wall on the inside, but we're not too sure what happened. But he definitely won't set a lap time in this quali session. Actually, the proper name of Pujon nowadays is, I think, double gauche or something, which basically just means double left. But it's a bit of an uncreative name. Same with the bus stop chicane.
I'm not changing what I call it.
Yeah, same.
Such a classic name.
Yeah, same with the bus stop chicane. Obviously, it makes sense. It made a lot of sense back in the day when it actually was like a bus stop. You know, a quick left-right chicane, and then a little, just a tiny short strain, and then a right-left chicane. So it actually was like a bus stop. Now it's just a big braking zone and another overtaking opportunity nowadays. After they took it out of the calendar, I think it was in 2006, wasn't it, where Belgium wasn't on the calendar? Not too sure.
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah, because it wasn't on that year's game, which I played.
Yeah, same.
Literally played to death.
It was a great game, to be fair.
Oh, absolutely. Venom's just done a fantastic lap to go P1 on a 140.6. 2 temps clear. Kryptonite had gone up to second, but drops to third. Lakitu is a driver I just want to quickly touch on. Hasn't had the best start to the season. I believe I know some of the reason why. Obviously, he was F3 runner-up last year, but of course, F3 last season, you were allowed to use the racing line, which he did use. And obviously now F3, you're not allowed to use the racing line. And from what Lakitu's been saying, it's something that is taking some adjusting. And that's the reason why we're not seeing the same sort of form from him this season. But, I mean, in theory at least, the more practice you do, with the lack of racing line, the better you should get. So hopefully we'll see Lakitu's results start to pick up in the second half of the season.
And I've just seen Loney got a penalty for, I believe it was contact. He's got a 5-place grid penalty only just now. And the same with Boyrod. So those two collided. I'm not too sure what happened, but both collided and both got a 5-place grid penalty. So that is not a great way to start the qualifying. Or not really to start the qualifying, but to start your race weekend here in Spa with a 5-place grid penalty, and both of them have not set their lap times so far. So it's not going to be a great starting position for them if they're going to carry on like that. And Slimbo has just left the session.
He's been having issues all throughout by the looks of it. He keeps leaving and rejoining, so hopefully those are issues that he can fix, but that's not going to be good going into the race. Not good for Loney, that penalty. He comes into this race third in the championship, doing very well so far, but it's a very closely contested championship. There hasn't really been, I think it's fair to say, there hasn't really been a dominating driver in these first 3 races, so it's still very much open for debate as to who will be the champion come the end of the season.
Yes, so a long way to go on this championship. Obviously, it's the last season on this game before we head on to F1 2021, which I'm kind of excited about, but kind of not. I mean, obviously, we've got 3 new tracks, which will be added later on in the game, which I think is a bit of a shame, to be honest, because, you know, it's the official F1 game. I think it should not be too much to ask for to have the 3 new tracks at the start of the game, especially Portimao and Imola, which were basically pretty clear that they're going to be on the calendar very early on. And Jeddah, obviously, they've only just announced the track layout a couple of weeks ago, so I can kind of understand that. And I'm actually not sure what's happening with Australia and the tracks that are going to change their layout. I'm not sure if that's going to be patched into the game at all.
Yeah, a lot of uncertainty there, and there is such. It's probably the most biggest changes we've had to the calendar in terms of A, new tracks, and B, modifications to existing tracks that we've seen in a very long time. So obviously we saw last year a very mixed up calendar due to COVID, and Co-Masters they just went with a calendar that was planned initially. So I guess not too much of a surprise in that regard, but it would be a shame. Potentially, there's still, of course, rumours that the likes of Istanbul may be getting drafted onto this year's calendar instead of Canada.
Yeah, I think that we've got a few tracks that are not very certain to be on the F1 calendar in real life. I think with the current situation concerning COVID at the moment, Brazil is not in a brilliant state. And I sadly got to say that I kind of doubt that we're going to race there towards the end of the season. I hope I'm going to be proven wrong, but I'm not too sure if I will. And yeah, obviously then some other tracks might come into discussion as Pat invalidates his probably final lap, like the Nürburgring. I think the Nürburgring would love to host another F1 race this season, and obviously Nürburgring was one of the few tracks that we had with visitors at the track, where I was one of the lucky few people who was able to get a ticket for the race weekend. And I got to say, the regulations or the things they did to prevent people getting infected with COVID on that weekend were very well. So I think Nürburgring has done a great job there and have probably shown the host of the F1 races that they've got a chance of setting up another F1 race with the things they did, and that's obviously always a good factor. But if Brazil, doesn't get it together in time, then we might see another race in Germany once again, and I really think a race in Germany belongs to the calendar.
Yeah, definitely hope so. Simon has retired in the pits. Obviously, he wouldn't have had time to go out for another run, so P2 is the best he'll start for him. I just saw Luke invalidate his attempt. He was up in second early on in qualifying, but has dropped to 8th now, and I don't think he'll be able to do another lap. Maybe he can cool those tyres down, recharge everything, and go again, but it will be tough on that one. There is one thing I'm wondering about with the fact that everyone, I haven't seen any medium tyre runners in qualifying. Makes me wonder, are we expecting a bit of rain in the race?
Not too unrealistic. I mean, once again, we are in the middle of Europe, basically. Belgium, obviously, not far away from Austria. So, yeah, Belgium is a track where you could expect some rain at some point. And we've seen that in real life a couple of times as well. I think the last time we saw rain in Belgium was in 2018, if I'm not mistaken, in qualifying and I think in qualifying and in free practice, if I remember correctly. So rain is not too unrealistic, as Loney goes 9th.
Yeah, Loney up to 9th, and at best then that'll mean a 14th place grid start for him due to his penalty. Boyrod's about to complete what will be his only attempt in qualifying. Checker flag is out, and it's only going to be good enough for 17th. It wasn't a particularly great lap, a 1:41.7 over a second off pole position, and it's now going to be interesting to see who can hook up their final laps. Can anyone take pole position off Venom?
I think, by the way, our timing was glitched because Cohen just came across the line, and he has started his lap, and he's not done with quali. It doesn't say so, so I reckon we'll see another couple of laps as I go on board with Daniel, and he's got a huge tank slapper there. I try to remember the corner. What was the corner name? I've got something in mind, but I could be completely wrong, but is it Stavalo?
That might be it, That might be it. I think so. I'm not going to say for sure. As Daniel goes across the line, goes 4th. I think without that oversteer moment, could have maybe challenged for pole there, but still a good improvement.
Yes, I was right. It's Stavalo. I think it's Stavalo 1 and 2 as well.
I see. Cornet's on a good lap as well. I'm just trying to see who's out there on a good lap. Venom's invalidated his attempt, so he will not improve. Law went up to 7th just in the Red Bull. And unless I'm mistaken, I think Cornet might be next. I think there's Kryptonite as well. He goes 2nd. Nice lap from Kryptonite, but with Cornet's lap, he might not be 2nd for too long.
Yeah, it looks like he could challenge for pole, but as he comes across the line, it is going to be pole by just 11 thousandths of a second. And once again, we've got an incredibly close qualifying session. And once again, it's Venom up there in the mix. Trinity comes across the line, cannot improve on his best lap so far. But let's see what Menno does. He's done 2 laps in this quali session. If he finishes this one, and as he comes across the line, he improves up to 12th. Which will be 11th on the grid then with Loney's penalty. And Boyrod will be the last one to finish his lap. But nope, he is already abandoned. So he'll start last with his 5th place grid penalty he's got. And that is not a great start to the weekend for him. As he cuts over the grass and nearly slams into the wall for good measure. And yes, he does. But,
this is such a mental front row we've got. I mean, the 2 people on the front row of the grid are not really that close to the top of the championship at the moment. And then you got Kryptonite in 3rd. Sure, he won last week, but I've got to be honest, Kryptonite's Achilles heel usually is his qualifying performances, so third here at his home track, that's by far and away his best qualifying I've seen from him in a long time.
Yeah, also Venom once again up there, as he's had pole last week, but obviously with a pretty bad race then. Hopefully today he can do it differently and maybe can, fight for the race win, maybe at least a podium, because his race pace didn't prove to be that good last week around Austria, and in the end I think he even retired.
Well, just to create a bit of tension here, if I'm right in saying, maybe my memory's wrong here, but wasn't it Cornet who tapped the back of Venom that sent him round in Austria?
Oh yes, it was. I think it was.
So you've got these two on the front row again. That's just set up perfectly.
So a lot of tension in the first row of the grid then. I think Venom hasn't forgotten about that just yet. I mean, it's just been a week, and if you've sat in the cockpit, you've probably got a better memory than the commentators who watched an entire race of 20 different drivers instead of just doing your own. And I think you won't forget if something like that happens. And oh my goodness, look at
Definitely
that
raining.
downpour.
Yeah, I think it might just be about wet.
A little bit. I mean, maybe slicks will work. Not too sure, but yeah, that even looks like heavy rain.
I'd say that's full wets.
Yeah, I think we'll see a full wet start. I can see some puddles here and there. So, interesting. We know in real life F1 we've got some of the guys, some of the drivers being very good in the rain. And especially at starts. Max Verstappen usually wasn't one who was too good at starts in the rain in the recent years, apart from 2017 in China, I think, where he gained like 7 positions on that one. But yeah, then he's had an awful start in Germany 2019, if I remember correctly. There was something else, and I can see. Did you have the same with Simon just there? Just his model just standing above his car. His driver
I did not see that. No.
His driver was just standing there with his gloves and his helmet. Rest of his body was missing. So, yeah, Cody's F1 games.
Before I say this next comment, I'm just going to mention that this was in the chat. This is not something I've said before anyone accuses me of a commentator's curse, which they undoubtedly would do. But according to a comment in the chat, someone has said Daniel is great in these conditions around Spa. So that could be a driver to keep an eye on.
Well, Daniel was.
But again, that's not my word. That's not my word. That's somebody else's.
Daniel was your driver of the day last week, and he had a pretty good race. So, yeah, I could see him up the front there. I'm just agreeing on what the comment says. I'm not making my own opinion here. I'm not making my own point. I'm not cursing anyone. But yeah, full wets for everyone then. I mean, yesterday in Real Life F1 we saw some guys starting on full wets while the rest of the grid was on inters. It's not the same thing for those guys out here. Everyone's starting on the full wet tyres. Don't know what the weather situation is like for the rest of the race. Maybe we'll see a dry up, maybe we'll see a full wet race, but we're definitely in for a long one. I mean, it's the longest track on the calendar. Obviously the least amount of laps as well, but still 22 laps, around 7.007 kilometers. It could take a while, it really could, but let's see, maybe it dries up at some point.
I'm super interested to see just how this unfolds on the front row of a grid. There's going to be some tension there, but obviously in these conditions I expect at least they'll be a little bit more cautious. This is definitely a case of, you could lose this race at turn 1, but you definitely can't win it, and in these conditions you really want to be extra careful. But Venom will see Cornet in front of him. He'll remember what happened last week, and he'll want to put things right, of course. Despite all of Venom's pace, he hasn't got any points to his name yet this season, and the longer that goes on, I think the more pressure it puts on yourself to change that. So he'll want to get points on the board sooner rather than later.
Yeah, but it's definitely going to be a tricky one for the race start here, as the drivers are about to line up now.
Yeah, it's not like Austria. We actually had a decent size formation lap.
So let's see. We've got Boyrod quite far behind, as he's only coming into the bus stop chicane now.
Yeah, he's not been particularly helpful to his teammate there, because his teammate lines up third, and his tyres will be cooling down all the time he has to wait for Boyrod.
And the drivers are now lined up, and we are ready for a very wet Belgium Grand Prix here in F3, as the lights are coming on already. We're not on the same time as the drivers. And now we are off in Belgium. It's a sensitive start for everyone, but it looks like Cornet is at the best start out of the front row, out of the front two. But Venom's got the outside line, which might help him with the grip. But no, he gets pushed out wide by Cornet. Many drivers going off the track. I can see a car mounting the other one in the background. And it looks like there's a lot of chaos in the background, but it's still Cornet having the lead ahead of Daniel, ahead of Venom. Daniel's made a great start. Venom's gone off the track once again. We've got yellow flags. Car. And Daniel's had a great start.
Yeah, someone called it in the chat. What a great spot. A few drivers got pushed out wide there on the exit of the first corner, and that really allowed Daniel just to take a great line and gain those positions. I'm trying to figure out why there's a virtual safety car. If I had to guess, it looks like Law's had an issue towards the back. He's missing a lot of his front wing, so he'll have to pit there. And Lakitu's now dropped behind him. I don't know if he's got damage as well. I'm getting guessing he has, just from what I just saw, but I've got a terrible angle to tell if he has or not.
Yeah, he's got a lot of front wing damage. Same with Cohen. Also,
it's a disaster for Cohen, a championship leader with problems. Oh, and if both Haas cars have got damage, that's a disaster for them. Wow, there's a lot of damage up and down the field.
The 5 last cars on the grid have got front wing damage now. And Boyrod has gained 6 positions because of that, and Slimbo's gained even 7. But I think the man of the start was Daniel, who's made a brilliant start from 5th up to 2nd without a real incident ahead of him, without picking up the pieces. But it was a bit of tension rising there in between Cornet and Venom coming into turn 1, because Cornet pushed Venom off the track, and because of that Venom lost out on P2 against the Ferrari of Daniel. And he's got Kryptonite now behind him, but he's got a 7/10 gap. We see that Simon going off the track in the background, and Simon tries to dive it down the inside of Pat into bus stop, but he's got the inside line, but he has to back out for now. He might be able to do the switchback now, but the grip is just not there yet, as the racing line is still forming. Girassi is trying to defend his position from Andreas, who's got the inside line for Lars Soares in the background. We've got Ferreira making a move as well, but Girassi has lost out, not quite just yet. A lot of side-by-side moments at the moment, but not one overtake, I think. Has Ferreira gained the spot? I don't think he has.
Now just having a look further down as well. There's some battling going on further back, but a few other drivers have made good starts. Slimbo, well, I was about to say Slimbo's up 7 places, but he's now just got past Trinity as well, so Slimbo up 8 places off the start, 17th to 9th.
That's a brilliant start. That's an absolutely brilliant start, and it's looking good for the Ferraris. One has gained 3 spots, the other one has gained 8 spots, and both of them in the points now, and one of them even on the podium. But it looks like Cornet is able to pull a little bit of a gap, and Venom is staying really, really close behind Daniel at the minute, and it looks like it's very tight. The gaps are not really forming as much as I thought they would in the rain, but at the moment the drivers are keeping it on track, at least the top 15, because all the others had to pit, sadly. And we can see, Law and Cohen are very, very far behind because of the pit stops.
I was about to mention as well, going back to that first corner as well, Venom obviously wasn't best pleased with Cornet last week. I wonder what he'll have made of being shoved off the track at turn 1. I mean, in all fairness, I think Cornet had the racing line and was within his rights to do that, but nevertheless, I don't think Venom will have taken to it too kindly, as Venom gets really close to the back of Daniel, who is just starting to drift slightly away from Cornet at the front.
Yeah, Cornet already built up a 1.3 second gap to Daniel in second place, and obviously we haven't got the DRS activated in the wet conditions. And yeah, it looks like Slimbo at the minute is lining up a move on Andres, and he wants to move up even more. It looks like he feels really comfortable in his Ferrari. A little bit of contact in the background between the McLaren of Boss and the Renault Ferreira, but it looks like Slimbo's got a lot of confidence in his Ferrari in these conditions. Venom is off! Has he got front wing damage?
Doesn't look like it.
Nah,
but
very
he
lucky
went off
then.
in Eau Rouge. And he's dropped behind his teammate, in fact, down to 7th place. So
must have been a big off then. If he dropped down so much, maybe he did a 360 spin or something. He recovered quite well, to be fair. And Boss and Ferreira are going side by side in the background, and Boss has gone up a place into 11th he goes, and now only one position away from the points. But yeah, that must have been a scary accident. I mean, coming up Radion and then having an issue and spinning or something 90% of the times, you are going to end up in the wall, as Simon already picks up his first penalty on lap 3. Oh, and in the background, Girassi is having a very loose rear end there.
Yeah, I almost wonder, because we were saying how close he was to the back of Daniel, I wonder if he just got caught in the dirty air, and obviously it's such a difficult corner, that one in the wet, and maybe just lost a bit of grip and went round. It's perhaps too close to the car in front there, and that just reduced the grip he had and caught him out. But thankfully, at least for him, it's not turned out too badly. But he's now got a sliding Girassi in front of him, who he's going to, I think, try and overtake. I'll be interested to see if there's any team orders here at AlphaTauri, because you could argue at this point Venom's out of position.
Yeah, but I saw Girassi was using overtake mode, as Venom goes very close to the back end of his teammate there. But luckily doesn't hit him, and Cornet just keeps on doing what he needs to do, extending his gap. Reminds me of Max Verstappen yesterday a little bit, who controlled the race basically from start to finish. As soon as it got dry, it got a little bit exciting at some point. But right now it's not looking like the rain is easing off at all, and you can clearly see a dry, less wet, let's not say dry, let's say less wet racing line building. And if you go off that, I think your grip is completely gone.
If there's anyone I would say who there might be a slight queue forming behind, it's probably Kryptonite would be the one that you would say is just not got the pace of those in front of him. And you can see nearly everyone from 3rd down to 11th is within a second of each other. So if anyone's maybe lacking a little bit in pace at the moment, it could be Kryptonite.
I think Daniel and Cornet are in very comfortable positions, a big enough gap behind, and yeah, not too close to the car in front, as Kryptonite goes off the track through Pujon. But I'm very sure that Daniel isn't quite happy with his place. Obviously he started in 5th, but he knows he's had a great start, and I think he wants that win.
Yeah, he knows there's a long way to go as well, and maybe just staying where he's at the moment. He's under no threat from behind, and just making sure Cornet doesn't get too far up the road has got to be the key here to his race. So far so good, from 5th to 2nd on the grid, and yeah, not too bad for him right now, and he'll just want to avoid the bad luck that he had last week, really, because it potentially was cost a win last week around Austria because of some bad luck with a collision with Simon, who is right behind Pat.
Yeah, a lot of guys are very close to each other, but as Venom pits, might they go for Inters?
Both AlphaTauris are in the pits, oh dear.
Oh no, Girassi and Venom. Will they go for Inters though? I'm curious. I think they might. Yes. Renault's pulling out the Inter tyres, and it's the same for the AlphaTauri guys. That is absolutely horrendous for Venom right now.
Yeah, we were mentioning was there going to be team orders at AlphaTauri. It doesn't like there was any team communication at all then. And in fact, Venom's having a change of front wing as well to boot, just to add to his woes. So that will be in a super long pit stop for him. Not ideal at all. And you've got the guys further down the field who already had to make a pit stop going in for Inters as well. So this is going to be an interesting one now. One team that's got a bit of an issue is Alfa Romeo, because both their drivers stayed out there, and they're right next to each other. So either one of them has to stay out for another lap, or they may have to double stack.
It's going to be interesting to see now how big the difference between Inters and Wets is now. I can see that Girassi is closing down the gap to Ryan quite a lot. He's already gained a second back, more than a second even, and it's getting less and less, and I think the Inters are just a lot quicker at this point. At least in terms of timing it looks like it is. Let's see the gap to the leader. If that's coming down, and yes it is. So it looks like Girassi has made a great strategy call by pitting onto the Inters. And yes, he's gaining massive amounts on P1. Look at that, the gap has already gone down under 24 seconds. So the others, it would be brilliant to actually have a competent race engineer now instead of Jeff, who could tell you that the Inters are a lot faster right now, but Jeff obviously wouldn't tell you. So you basically have to figure out yourself if you want to take that risk. And
everybody's coming
decided, in. Yes, everyone's diving into the pits right now.
Apart from Trinity, because of course Andreas in front of him in the same team chose to pit.
Cost him. Boss made a very weird pit entry. Lonely. Yep, everyone pits. And I think Girassi has saved a lot of time by pitting one lap earlier. Because
I'm looking at it, I think he might come out around where Pat is, so he's definitely gained out of that. Let's see, obviously it's not the longest pit lane around here, so I'm just looking to see where he rejoins.
He's going to be ahead.
Just ahead of Pat. I said he'd be sort of near Pat, and he's literally right there with him, and he gets out in front, so that's probably at least 2 positions I would say he's gained out of that. And it's good recovery for Girassi, but look at Venom, almost 15 seconds behind his teammate. That's how much that double stack cost him.
Yeah, brilliant strategy call though by Girassi in that situation. He just took the gamble. He thought about it and then decided, let's just go for it. And in the end, it paid off brilliantly. And obviously, his tyres are up to temperature already, and he doesn't have to get used to the intermediates now. In comparison to Kryptonite, who now has to get used to the more grip he's got now. And obviously you're going to be quicker on the Inters than you are on the Wets, so I think it might take some drivers a lap or two to actually get used to these conditions now, because they are a little bit different. But I think as soon as you go off the racing line, you might be struggling once again, because I think off the racing line it's actually still very wet.
Just looking at it for Trinity, it's actually not as bad as what I thought it was going to be. He's losing time, but there's a massive, he was behind Andreas anyway. He'll drop behind Ferreira, but there's a decent gap behind that which he should slot into, so he's only going to lose 1 on track position because of staying out an extra lap, even if he does lose a few seconds.
And you see Boyward, I think that's already Boyward's second penalty now. Yeah, it is.
Not ideal for him, he's right on the brink of a point, but that's going to cost him dear as Trinity comes into the pits. And just having a look here, I want to see the gap when they cross the line, for instance, but I get a feeling, I'm just trying to check the timing when it actually appears for me. What I was going to say is, I think Cornet is really pulling clear of Daniel right now. A gap over 2.5 seconds. Not as much as I thought it was, but still he's got good pace. But the one driver who looks to be pushing out there is Girassi, who did do the fastest lap until his teammate just took it away, but you get the feeling Girassi might put some pressure on Kryptonite in the next few laps.
Yeah, Girassi is looking to be quite quick at the minute. Lakito picks up his first penalty of the evening as well. And I'm not sure if that's an ideal situation for Kryptonite at the minute, because I think he's just a bit slower than those guys behind him. But it looks like he's been able to pull away a bit more now, and Pat is under a lot of pressure from Simon behind now, who's got a penalty already. And I gotta say, those pit stops really widen the gaps in between the drivers. So, did some of the guys double stack?
Other than the Alpha Tauris, I don't think they did. Obviously we know the Alfa Romeos didn't.
Probably some people just got held up in the pits by other cars in the fast lane, so they couldn't get out.
Yeah, I mean, the Haas's had to double stack for damage on lap 1, but other than that, I don't believe so. Maybe Ferreira might have lost a bit of time, because I know that he was right next to the Alfa Romeos when they double stacked. sorry, the AlphaTauris, but other than that, I'm not too sure. But just looking at the moment in terms of a championship, Girassi's in a strong position here up in P4 and Kryptonite in P3 because all the other drivers near the top of the championship are out of the points right now. So obviously you got Cohen and Loney. Cohen's way down in 19th, Loney in 13th. So it's a good opportunity here for Girassi and Kryptonite to maybe put themselves in the lead of the championship after this round.
Big lock up from Pat as he goes into turn 1 and goes very wide. And that might have cost him a chance at overtaking Girassi because Pat looks like he's got a bit more pace in the car than Girassi as Venom and Loney seem to be fighting, but I'm going to stick with this.
Oh no, but not. I was about to say, thought for a brief second there that Loney, Boyrod's gone way out of shape there. Well, Loney apparently even more so because he's got a penalty. But yeah, I thought that for a second they were going to go side by side for a Rouge, but they decided up against it. But they're still going side by side into this corner, and Boyrod trying to fight. Oh, there's a bit of wheel tapping there. It's not the cleanest of battles, it has to be said, in terms of wheel scrapes, but Boyrod eventually gets the move done. So Venom nearly then goes into the back of Boyrod. He does, pushes him a little bit wide, and Venom retakes the position. I would not call that the cleanest of battles, but yeah, they're definitely getting to know each other's cars.
Yeah, I gotta say, when they went out of Les Combes into the right-hander after it, it looked like they were fully alongside each other as Boyrod has another snap of oversteer. Save for Loney, and a brilliant save. That's some good car control he's out there, and avoided a massive incident for his Williams. That would have surely been him out of this race, but he's managed to save it. But I gotta say, it looked like they were fully alongside each other, fully side by side. And Boyrod just left absolutely no room on the inside for Venom. I mean, like they were literally completely side by side. Couldn't even tell who was ahead. And Boyrod was on the outside and still clipped the curb on the inside. And that's never a good sign if you're side by side with somebody.
No, definitely not. We got a yellow flag in Sector 3. That's Menno. Menno, of course, the new teammate to Ryan at Racing Point following Feynman's departure.
Boyrod and Loney are going at it. Sorry to interrupt you there, but yeah, Boyrod once again, and that's Boyrod, gotta say, bit aggressive today. Maybe a bit over aggressive. Wouldn't call that the cleanest of moves. Dived it down the inside and then ran him out of road on the outside. So gotta say, not that big of a fan of Boyrod's race style at the minute.
Yeah, maybe a bit of frustration creeping in, but nevertheless. Oh, and then Loney nearly goes into the back of him for good measure and has to take to the sort of skate road, if you like, through Les Combes. So not ideal. Neither of these two at the moment driving with any real consistency, it has to be said.
Loney's run wide. I wonder if he's got slight front wing damage because of that, and in the background, Boss loses the rear end completely as Loney picks up a 3 second penalty. Sorry, not 5. Still, a thing I've noticed is that nobody can really get a good gap to the cars around them. And I think Pat, was that his first penalty? Yes, it was. Pat's now got a penalty as well. That might motivate Simon now because he's only 2 tenths behind. He's got a penalty as well, but he's using overtake. He's looking for the inside into bus stop, and he dives it down the inside, locks up. He's given the room from Pat, and he's very close. Might he overtake him on the traction? No, not yet, not quite. Was close, but I gotta say I like that battle a lot more already, just because Pat left some room on the inside.
Yeah, left some room without basically handing him the position. It was a good bit of driving that from Pat, and I don't know what Boyrod and Loney are getting up to now, but they've just swapped again. It's quite something, but yeah, it's amazing really when you look at it going down the field. They've only really got Pat and Simon in the top 10 with penalties at the moment.
I'm sorry, but Boyrod, come on, mate. What are you doing today out on track? I mean, I just don't understand. He's even behind the other car and still just pushes him off completely, and even himself he goes off the track because he tries to push him off the track. So so badly, and there goes
Oh.
Boss, and Loney has just said,
Well,
come on, Boss, have a shot,
yeah,
have
Loney,
some fun.
I was literally on board with Loney, and he lifted off the throttle, so I think he's almost like, I'm just going to let somebody else try to tap Boyrod. But
Yeah.
Boyrod's just let Boss through, so is there a bit of personal grief between these pair?
Might be, and I think there might be a bit of a crash coming up now, but nope. I think now it was Loney running Boyrod out of room there. And it looks like Boyrod and Loney are not the best of friends on track today. I think there might be a bit of conversation going on in the chat after the race.
Yeah, that's a bit bizarre and unnecessary, if you ask me, from the pair of them there. But nevertheless, it's Kryptonite's just starting to pull away. He's got over a second in front of Girassi, as Boss, in his desperate attempt to get away from the pair of them, picks up a penalty.
And DRS enabled.
And Kryptonite dives into the pits.
And Simon was absolutely not sure if he wanted to pit. It looked like he's got a late call from his engineer. That I would have suspected in real life. He turned towards the pit entry, but then turned away from it. Thought, I'm not going to pit now. And then it really seemed like someone told him pit. And then he went straight back into the pits. And you could see he was thinking, do I pit now? Do I not? And he's going to be jumped by basically everyone. Not quite. Lucky for him. He slots in behind Slimbo.
Kryptonite and Ryan have gone for soft tyres. I'm not sure about that,
that might cost them. That might cost them because it was just such a late call that they couldn't switch onto mediums anymore.
Well, certainly for Kryptonite, it was literally like a last-minute decision, so he didn't really have any control. And somehow as well, if you look here, despite the fact that Kryptonite was ahead of Pat, they're now battling each other going up to the com. And, it's close, it's very, very close. They give each other just enough space, and that's a great move from Pat. And Pat keeps the position over Kryptonite because despite
look at Slimbo, he's looking for the outside. He had a little look. That was a smart one from Slimbo. He just stayed behind him. Saw those two were battling, saw Kryptonite had a bad exit. Kryptonite defended the inside line into the hairpin, but then he just looked for the outside and tried it, but could not quite make the move stick. And it looks like now he's under threat from Simon, who is on his exhaust, and it's all coming down now. As soon as the drivers have fitted the dry tyres and the DRS is enabled, it looks like it's going to be chaos now.
Mercedes must know something we don't, because both Mercedes drivers went on to softs there, so not ideal for either of them, and I just don't think they'll be touch and go whether they can get to the end or not on those. And here you go, all the top four drivers now win. It'll be interesting to see if they've lost any time by staying out that extra lap. And Cornet, the race leader, goes on to softs as well.
Daniel goes on to mediums. I think the mediums are the safer option. I think the softs are the risky one. But they might just want to have that extra grip on the first couple of laps here. Girassi drops. I think he's lost. Yeah, I think he's lost a couple of positions here. Yeah, he's lost the spot to Pat now. And he might lose the spot to Slimbo. Slimbo really going to go for it. They're going side by side into a Rouge and side by side through Radion as well. And the contact was made. And Slimbo had to avoid by going off the track. And that was scary, and we can see Kryptonite is trying to get past Pat now on his fresh softs, and yes, he's gone past. In the background, they're going side by side as well, as Girassi is trying to defend his position. And because of staying out one lap longer than all the others, he's lost out 2 positions, but he's now looking for the inside line into the hairpin here. Slight contact made, that put Slimbo off the line a little bit, and that might have been wet there. And Girassi gets the position back on Slimbo, and Slimbo picks up a penalty.
And so does Simon as well. Simon's up to 6 seconds of penalties now. He's on board with him, and that was definitely too wide. And he's just picked up another penalty as well. Oh, it's a real disaster. A couple of corners for Simon. Up to 9 seconds worth of penalties now, and not too ideal at all. I think for those who pitted a lap later, they might have more of a chance of getting those softs to the end, but for those who pitted on the first lap, it's going to be very much a difficult one. Loney's off the track.
Simon is off. Simon is off and into the wall out of Stevelo too.
What has happened to the Williams cars in the space of about 10 seconds there? both of them off the road, and Simon, in one lap, gets 2 penalties and goes off the track and is out the points. I don't think he could have had a worse lap. If he could have dreamt of a worse lap.
And yes, that is from wing damage as well. Reminds me of that one lap yesterday in Imola where both Mercedes car crashed within a span of 1 lap.
And Simon's in the pits and he's retired from the race as well. What a disastrous race for the Williams cars. Loney's in the pits as well, and is he about to do the same? Is it going to be a double Williams retirement, I wonder? Doesn't look like. Yep, Loney also out, so what a disaster for the Williams. I don't know what happened to Loney, but I do believe, unless I'm mistaken, that he was right. He was quite near to Boyrod when he went, so it wouldn't surprise me after what we've seen already between those two.
Well, those two haven't become the best of friends within that race here tonight. But Andres has moved up a spot on his softs. Obviously, the situation that we've got right now is that the guys on softs are going to be a lot quicker now. In the first couple of laps, we've got a car off. That's Trinity.
Oh no, Trinity off the road. He's managed to recover. I don't think he's got damage, but he's dropped. He's dropped behind Ryan.
Gotta say, that looked a bit funny how I was just looking at Trinity recovering in the background. It was just Venom inventing his own circuit there, going completely off the track through Pujon, ignoring all the track limits. Another yellow flag. That's Boyrod. For good measure, both of those guys now have spun in the same corner.
It's understandable from Boyrod's point of view. He's lost his sparring partner now. He's lost without him.
And let's see what Venom does. Venom has a massive off.
Oh my goodness me. Oh,
that was absolutely huge, and that has to be a safety car, and it is. That was horrendous. He was so close to the rear end of Trinity, and I think he might have just caught himself off guard a little bit. I think he might have just been a little bit too quick that he expected, and we've got drive-throughs left, right and centre.
Yeah, drive-through penalty for Cohen, Law. Boyrod's up to 20 seconds worth of penalties. It's all gone off here, and I tell you what, those who managed to get to the pit lane when the safety car came out have all put some fresh softs on. And I was about to say, the one thing this helps out for those drivers who went for the soft tyres. This safety car is an absolute blessing for those guys.
Yeah, we've got a lot of people in the pits who might switch onto softs now. Yes, like Keaton and Boyrod have decided to do so. And we've got Cohen and Law both having to serve a drive-through penalty now. But that was a massive off. Oh my goodness. Venom just... I think he maybe misjudged his speed in comparison to Trinity's. And might have just tapped his rear end, or maybe went onto the curb on the inside. But he had a snap of oversteer, tried to correct it, and then he just swung back. His rear end just didn't want to do what he wanted to. And he absolutely slammed into the wall, and if that would have been real life, wow, I don't even want to imagine. That was scary. I'm glad this is just a game.
Yeah, for sure, and it's unfortunately for Venom, it's becoming a familiar story for one way or another. He's had 3 DNFs in the 3 races he started this season, and the pace is clearly there, but just seems to be hooking it up over the race distance. Just isn't happening for him at the moment. And he's had a bit of bad luck again, you have to say, with the pit stop stacking at AlphaTauri, but nevertheless, it's really not what he wants. We're nearly at the halfway point of the season now, and to not have completed a race distance yet has got to be concerning.
Ryan pits. Why does Ryan?
Well, I was gonna... Yeah, Ryan's on softs. That's a bit of a strange one. Trinity's also in. If Trinity does have a... So... Yeah, I was just going to ask you, actually, for those drivers near the front on mediums, would you expect them to pit? But it doesn't look like any of them have, like the likes of Daniel, Pat, Slimbo and Ferreira have all opted to stay out, but they could be vulnerable on this restart.
Yeah, I think they just don't want to lose track position, and obviously it's difficult to overtake people who are on the same set of tyres as you, and if everyone's on the softs, obviously you don't have that big of an advantage, but obviously if you stay out and stay on your mediums, they're definitely going to make it, but I'm pretty sure the softs are making now as well. But they could be quite worn towards the end, but you definitely have got a disadvantage for the first couple of laps after the restart now.
Sure, I'm just going to try and see if I can find out any information. Yeah, I'm just trying to find out if there's any information. Yeah, it sounds like for Venom, he's sort of blaming himself for his race going wrong, so it doesn't look like there's anything on to award with Trinity there or anything like that. There's also some words been exchanged between Boyrod and Loney, which might not be too surprising.
But those two have found each other.
We're under safety car conditions here, and I'm intrigued now because Cornet and Daniel have sort of been running their own races for the majority of this race. This is sort of his first opportunity here, where they're sort of under some pressure, particularly Daniel, of course, on mediums. So this could be quite intriguing at the restart now, because Cornet hasn't got that margin that he had anymore, and neither has Daniel in second. So this is going to be some pressurised moments, and for those guys with penalties, they're going to need to make some positions up, because now the whole field's bunched up. Those penalties are going to be even more crucial.
Oh yeah, that's a good point. Actually, didn't really think of that. But that could prove very, very difficult now for those guys with those penalties. We can see Sandre is on Trinity's side. We can see Suleiman is on Andre's side. And yeah, after Ivan in the chat said before the start of the race that Daniel is great in these conditions. Now these conditions are gone, so how is he going to perform in the dry conditions without the help of fresh softs as well?
Yeah, for sure. I was just thinking as well, of course, we were talking about Slimbo earlier as well, having picked up so many positions from his grid spot. Of course, he had all those connection issues in qualifying, so maybe he didn't get to put a good lap together because of that. But he's definitely made up for it in the race, up 11 positions as it stands. But he has got a penalty. All the drivers with penalties in the top 10 only have 3 seconds worth. And I think the reason why Ryan came in for another new set of softs is just simply because he could. I don't think he actually lost any positions because of it.
Ah, good point, good point. So if you won't lose anything, why wouldn't you pit then? That's a good point. I didn't really took a look at the gap behind him. So yeah, that makes sense. Obviously, you'd rather have completely new softs instead of 3-lap old softs, because it definitely makes a difference. I mean, it's Spa, the longest track on the calendar, and 1 lap makes a difference, and if it's 3, then even more. So he's got a very good position now.
Yeah, Trinity as well, with a lack of penalties as well. Obviously, those two guys on brand new softs. Everyone ahead of them is on worn tyres to some minor extent, of course, but still they'll be quite worn towards the end, those guys on softs especially. But it's an interesting situation right now, and it's kind of, speaking from a neutral point of view, I'm actually kind of happy there's a safety car in a way, because you got about 5 guys at the start, Luke, Mena, Lakitu, Cohen and Law, who were obviously dealt a damage on the opening lap, and he fought really from there. He had no chance of salvaging anything, but at least now with a safety car being out, it helps them maybe salvage some points at the back end of this race.
I can tell you something, that it's one of the coolest things ever, having a safety car while you're live at the track, seeing all the cars shifting down, warming up their tyres, going left and right, and just seeing all the cars who are still in the race right behind each other. That's always great. I bet the fans in the game love it.
Yeah, hopefully Cornet's not too eager on the throttle, which we saw with Max Verstappen yesterday. But
I was actually very confused yesterday, because I was expecting a standing start, but we won't have a standing start here as Cornet's already gone, and that's very early. But he's already gone, and he's built a half a second gap already, so I think he won't come under pressure or too much from Daniel just now. And Daniel's had a good restart as well, though, because he's got a 9/10 gap to Kryptonite. He's under pressure from Pat, though, so Pat might have an opportunity of an overtake into Lake Home.
Yeah, for sure. He's looking sort of out of Kryptonite's toe there just to see if there's an opportunity, and even with the lack of DRS, he's so close to Kryptonite, he's going to have an opportunity into Lake Home for sure. And just wonder if Kryptonite just maybe didn't quite get the restart as he would have hoped. Here we go then, right in the slipstream of a Mercedes. He's going to go to the outside. Kryptonite sensibly defending the inside line, but is he going to be able to prevent Pat coming through? Yes, he is. Holds the line very nicely and keeps the car behind him. Of course, Pat on the medium tyre, so won't necessarily have as much grip as Kryptonite as well. And we've already got someone else picking up an extra penalty, which is not ideal. And I'm just intrigued to see what Ryan and Trinity can do on those new softs as they try and maybe thread their way through some of the cars in front.
Yeah, that's a battle we would have loved to see. We love to see both cars giving each other the room they need with the necessary respect for an actual fight, rather than what Boy Ward and Loney did in the majority of this race. That reminded me a bit of, a bit of open lobbies on the F1 games. And that's definitely something I don't want to see all too often. But we can see Cornet is already building a big gap to Daniel. And I think Daniel's not feeling too uncomfortable in this position. If he can keep Kryptonite outside of his 1 second window, he's under no threat.
No, and to be honest with you, it's kind of where it was before, as we've got Ryan looking down the outside of Ferreira into the bus stop chicane and just clean drives around the outside of him, locked up a bit, but super move into the bus stop around the outside. Just so much later and more confident on the brakes. Ryan up to 8th, and he's going to try and charge his way. Few more position. Ferreira's gone. Ferreira's gone in the background. He wouldn't have had that. Cohen's out of the race as well. I think he may have retired in the pits on that one. Law's in the pits as well, so they must have had an incident. But yeah,
Law's
disaster for Ferreira there.
His penalty, his drive-through.
Ah, yes, of course. Cohen has decided that's enough for him today. Championship leader will not be scoring on this one, but yeah, I have to say, I don't know how Ferreira avoided contact with anyone else there.
Yeah, that was some good reactions there, as Boss has gone past Trinity now. And Trinity lost out then, instead of gaining the position.
Yeah, of course, Boss and Luke also fitted new tyres when they pitted. Luke is someone I feel like could maybe gain a few positions here. He's got no penalties at the moment, and we know he's a very quick driver. So it'd be interesting to see what he does. But yeah, I wondered if the top two may come under threat once the field got bunched up. But to be honest with you, even now it's dry conditions, it's very much as you were before. Cornet and Daniel just able to pull away from the guys behind them. Oh, and Pat's into the wall! Pat went into the wall behind him. I think he's avoided damage. I tell you what, if he's just avoided the wall there, it's an absolute miracle. But he's definitely lost positions to Girassi and Slimbo. But I just saw in the background of Daniel, Pat go way off there before Stavolo, and yes, he went into gravel. He must have just avoided a wall, but that was a big moment. I'm not quite sure how he went off there. It's quite an unusual place to go off.
Andres was thinking about move. Pat got a bit wide into the bus stop chicane now. That might give Andres a good shot at overtaking him on the Camel Straight then. It's long enough after Rouge and Radion. If he gets a good run, he's got the DRS, he's going to have the slipstream as well, and the fresher tyres obviously. So that might give him a shot, but he's not that close. But still within 5/10, so that might just be enough. As he flies up Radion now, as we're on board with him, and he's activated overtake mode. And let's see, he's in the slipstream, he's got the toe, and he's gaining, but not enough. And Pat is able to hold his position for another lap.
I was just wondering here how Cornet's soft tyres are doing, because there's just signs that Daniel's starting to put him under a bit of pressure for the race lead.
Oh wow, he's gained a lot. Maybe Cornet made a mistake somewhere, because that gap was over a second a lap ago.
He's still got a decent gap to Kryptonite, so I just wonder if Daniel's maybe just turned it up that little bit. But either way, Daniel's within DRS range now, and there's every opportunity here. But he could snatch this win away from Cornet in the latter stages.
Might be. Also, Girassi is very close to Kryptonite. We can see that Kryptonite doesn't have the DRS on Daniel ahead. Daniel's doing a great job so far on his mediums. And now it might be actually the point where the mediums start to feel a bit better than those softs on the same age. And we'll see if Daniel's made the right choice by going with the safer option, or if Cornet has just made the better choice with those softs. But I could see them wearing down now within the next couple of laps. I mean, they've got 7 laps on them already.
I mean, I was going to mention, and I was going to say that Daniel has drained a lot of his ERS, but then again, so has Cornet. So, you know, it's not like Cornet's been saving his ERS or anything like that. He's just genuinely getting closer to him, and certainly in his last couple of laps, the softs have an estimated distance of 9 laps. Of course, we've had some laps under the safety car, but I anticipate in the last couple of laps here, Cornet may have some defending to do.
And Kryptonite has some defending to do now as well, but he can't because Girassi has gone up a place and onto the podium positions and up into third it goes. And no chance for Kryptonite to defend there, as now Slimbo has a little look on the inside of Pat here. But yeah, Girassi didn't even use any of his ERS, so that looked like a pretty easy move to me. And it just looks like Kryptonite doesn't have the pace on these softs.
No, definitely not, which is unusual because of course in qualifying he was really fast. So I'm a bit puzzled by that. But all race, to be fair, he's looked like he's been on the defensive. He hasn't really been able to get too close to the pair out front, but he's still been fourth. And the good news for him is the two guys behind him have both got penalties. So at the very least, Kryptonite.
And I think that was Boss and Luke going side by side. Yes, Luke is lining up a move on Boss now, as they're really close to each other coming into Blanchimont. Please don't go side by side here. We saw that end in tears for Venom earlier on in this race, but it looks like they've kept it clean so far. It's getting a bit overcast again. I wonder if there's going to be maybe even some rain once again at a later stage in the race, maybe on the last lap. But who knows? We're on the penultimate lap now, and Daniel has gone very, very close to the rear end of Cornet. He's lost out a little bit on the exit, but if Daniel wants to win this race, he needs Cornet's tyres to drop off now. He's got the DRS, he's got the slipstream, but it's definitely not going to be enough on this lap. But I don't know if it's going to be enough on the next lap either. But let's see if Andreas is going to get past Limbo here. Yes, he is. Andreas into P6 then. Obviously no penalties, so it's going to be 5. Another position gain, a P5 for him in the end then. Akita and Ferreira fighting it out for what is ultimately lost after Law served his drive-through penalty. So not too interesting for us at the minute. Trinity.
Oh, I thought he might have just done. I was just having a look at warnings just to add to the mix here with Cornet and Daniel, and both of them have 2 warnings, so they are 1 warning away from a penalty. So while Daniel's pushing to try and get close enough to Cornet, he's got to be careful, but so is Cornet. They are very close. What's happened to Pat? Pat's gone.
Oh yes, he is.
And he's got a huge damage to the right-hand side of his front wing, so in contact with somebody or a wall, and it's around the same area of the track where he went off before. So a few issues there, and that's going to cost him any chance of points today, which is a real shame for him. And
going to come down to the last lap in between Cornet and Daniel. Daniel's closer than ever than he was before, and he's got the better tyres at this stage, I'm pretty sure. And Cornet has got probably 1 more straight to defend against Daniel behind him, but that Ferrari is looking very quick, and he is really close, and that could be it. On the last lap of this race, we have a fight for the race victory, and he's very close to the rear end of Cornet. He can't overtake him now. And now he's got the DRS. He hasn't got the toe though. That was a late move by Cornet, but Daniel has gone past and up into the lead, it looks like. Yes, he has. And that is a change of the race lead on the last lap of this race. Can Cornet fight back?
And we got Slimbo and Andreas fighting further down, but wow, what incredible drama on the final lap of the race. Daniel taking the lead. Oh, and Cornet just lost it! Oh, and how on earth has he kept that car going? That's ruined any chance he has of going back at Daniel, but he very nearly ended up in a wall there or completely spun round. He did incredibly well to keep the car under control there. I wonder if these softs are just going off now.
I think they do. I think they might, and that's why Kryptonite is nowhere near Girassi anymore, and it looks like it's going to be Daniel's win then. It looks like the mediums have paid off. The safer option was the right way to go, because I can see Slimbo is catching up to Kryptonite now as well. Will Slimbo be close enough to Kryptonite? I don't think he will. So he just caught up a little bit too late, but it looks like Daniel is going to be the man to win this race after his unlucky event in Austria. He's got to come across the line and win the race in Spa on the mediums. He's made a great strategy and he's won the race. Yes, we actually have some rain. There goes Cornet. He finishes second ahead of Girassi, then Kryptonite fends off Slimbo on the last lap, who's going to drop down quite a lot because of his penalties. Andreas takes 5th, Trinity 6th, Luke in 7th, still picks up a few points. Slimbo finishes in 8th then with his penalties. Ryan in 9th, and Menno takes the final point of this race. But that was quite a thriller towards the end, and if we would have had that rain just 1 or 2 laps earlier, we might have had a bit more chaos on the last lap.
Oh, definitely. What an incredible final lap that was. I've just got to say, huge well done to Daniel. Undoubtedly would have felt very disappointed after Austria, but what a way to bounce back. Redemption after last week. Cornet put up a great fight, and in the end, he had to just fight to keep his car on the road on that final lap. He did incredibly well to keep that going and take 2nd. I think when he looks back on it, he won't be too disappointed with that. I think it's still a really good effort from him, but as we maybe thought when he made those decisions to pit, the medium tyres, ultimately, they weren't the quickest to start with, but they were the right tyre to be on in the end.
Yeah, I think that was the better way to go. Consistency is key in F1, and I think that safety car might have even helped him, because it didn't give Cornet the chance to pull away as much as he maybe could in that period where the software was still quicker, and that is your finishing result in the end. And yeah, we've got some guys who've climbed up the order quite a lot. One of them was Ryan, starting in 19th and finishing in 9th in the end, as well as Andreas starting in 13th, finishing 5th, and Girassi from 12th on the grid up to 3rd. But I gotta say, my driver of the day, after it was yours last week, I gotta say it's Daniel, because, you know, he was, all the time, he kept Cornet under pressure, more or less. He never let the gap slip out more than 5 seconds or something. So he was never too far away from him to put him under pressure as soon as Cornet makes a mistake. And in the end, he's gone with the right tyre choice in the moment it was critical in. He decided to stay out on the mediums instead of pitting onto fresh softs. And with that decision, he, in the end, won the race on, yeah, what was the better medium tyre.
I had a feeling you were going to say Daniel, which is why I did initially think Daniel, but I'm going to go for somebody else just for the purpose of having a different driver. For me, I'm actually going to say Girassi. A great drive from 12th to 3rd. I thought his gamble to go from wets to winters was an inspired one. That really helped move him up, and he just drove a really solid race. Didn't go for anything too outrageous, but some of his moves are fantastic, and to get that podium off Kryptonite in the end showed a lot of patience and determination. So to bounce back after he may feel like he was unfairly robbed of a win last week is some good points for Girassi, and if I'm right in saying that will take him as a new championship leader going to next week, which is an important race for many of these drivers because it's at Zandvoort, and as you've probably noticed, we have a lot of Dutch drivers in this league.
A lot is a bit of an understatement here. But I think we've seen a great race today. A lot of excitement even on the last lap of the race. And obviously the change of the lead on the last lap of the race, and then Cornet nearly completely losing his car as he tried to stay close to our race winner in the end, Daniel, to maybe go for a move into the bus stop, but then he just lost the car. Did well to keep the car on the road, and I just want to have a quick word about Noni and Boyrod once again, because I really hope that goes to the stewards, because I really don't want to see that kind of driving again, because that was not really fun to watch, gotta say.
No, it was disappointing from the pair of them, and they'll probably trade insults of each other, but I've got to be honest, I don't think either of them covered himself in glory this week, so hopefully a reset for next week and they'll come back better, but there's every chance the stewards may come down on some of that driving.
Yeah, I really hope we get a good steward's decision on that then. And yeah, with that being said and done, I think we've seen a brilliant race here tonight. I'm very happy to have been able to commentate that for you along with Jake. And Jake, thank you for joining me.
No, pleasure as always. I'm already looking forward to Zandvoort for home Grand Prix for so many of these guys next week.
Yeah, we're going to be back live next week, Monday, 7 p.m. UK time, as always. Right now we've got the F1 live stream So make sure to check that out. It's the pinnacle of PSGL. And yeah, with that said, I hope to see you guys next week once again. And until then, goodbye and take care.